Hey everyone, Chris Geo here, coming to you from Beyond the Veil. I wanted to do a short show. I'm going to try to do a short broadcast this morning, but there were a couple of things on my mind about NPCs, the hive mind, and a couple of other things. I've been experiencing some weirdness, and I wanted to know if anybody else has been experiencing the same. So I would ask that you please leave your experiences in the comments if you have noticed anything similar. I also want to talk about Rick and Morty. I'm a huge fan of Rick and Morty, but I came across some information that I have to talk about briefly. It is some darker information, but I'll just, go over it really, really briefly. But I just wanted to illustrate what's underneath inside of the minds of those creators there. And I think I want to get into Stranger Things 3 as well, because this all kind of ties into the hive mind NPC. So let's get into it. So far away tonight, but I can't lose this one, get a pride of a falling night. Thought that I was fit to fight for us to be. You gave me life for loving me. Tell me, where did we go so wrong?
Raw consciousness does not require a savior, but rather, raw consciousness requires only knowledge of oneself and the power to access it. Remember this, as we unlock an even greater gnosis from beyond the veil.
From the Pacific Northwest, good morning, good evening, wherever you may be across the nation, around the world. I'm Chris Geo. We're going to step beyond the veil briefly this morning. Mrs. Geo is asleep still, but I actually made a video on my cell phone yesterday that I was going to upload to YouTube, but I figured, you know what, let's go ahead and just speak with everybody live about what's going on. And then after I made the video, I had another really, really weird experience with the NPCs. So I don't want to come off sounding like paranoid or, mentally unstable or anything like this. So I'm really hesitant to talk about this, and I'll explain why here in just a few moments. But I've been noticing these weird behavioral patterns with what I can only dub as NPCs. So let me start from the beginning. I was driving down the freeway. This all happened in like one day. And then yesterday's event at the end of the night was just the one that just topped it all off. So I was driving down the freeway, and I'm just driving in the left lane, just normal. And I happened to turn and look, and there's a guy in a pickup truck, old pickup truck, probably from like the 1990s, one of those smaller pickup trucks. And he's staring me dead in the eye like this. And I'm like, that's a weird look to get. Anyways, he wasn't staring at my car. He was staring me directly in the eyes. So I proceed down. I get off on the exit. I get to the exit, and there are homeless people that are on the side of the road, and they're begging for money. There's like 3 or 4 of them. And, there's a big meth problem and a big homeless problem here. Come to find out, because they're actually dumping these people here. They're bringing them from other places, and they're dumping them right here in downtown. So I'm like looking around going, why is this such a problem? And I was speaking to one of the gas station attendants, and he said, no, they get in trouble in another city, like Seattle, for example, and then they will bust them over here, and they'll tell them, okay, you can either go to jail or you can go relocate over here to Spokane. And I'm like, that is freaking insane. But that's why there's such an influx. So anyways, so I noticed this person, and he was begging, and I'm just like sitting in traffic, and there's got to be 15 cars around me, and I wasn't even in the front. It's not like my car was right at the front of the traffic light. I'm like maybe 4 or 5 cars back, and I'm like kind of in the middle. It was like 4 lanes. I think I was in the 1, 2, 3, third lane here, and this guy was over here past the 4th lane. And I turn, and this guy just looks at me, locks eyes with me again, and he gives me this look like this. And I'm like, okay, this is bizarre. Something strange is going on here. But again, I just thought, no big deal, proceeded. And again, he wasn't looking at my car. He was looking dead in my eyes, almost like everything just stopped and he turned directly to me. So I proceed and I drive even further and I get down to a bus stop and I see this mother with her kids come out of the bus stop and she's walking and there's a kid and he's probably 13 to 15, right around that age, heavy set, really overweight. He's the type of kid that would grow up to have a mullet and drive an old pickup truck. I don't, you take that for what it's worth, but this is the way the whole family looked. Kind of hillbilly-ish. I guess that's a non-offensive way to put it. Hillbilly-ish, right? We have a big problem with hillbillies and meth heads and all of this here. But the kid didn't look like a meth head. The other ones look like meth heads. And I'll get to the importance of meth here in just a second, and how it's an AI link into different consciousness. But anyway, so I'm driving. I get up to the light again and they're walking. Nobody's really paying attention to me except this kid. All of a sudden I turn and I look and he looks at me like this with these eyes again. And this time, eyes kind of sunken in, black under here like this, and he's just looking at me like this. And I'm like, okay, this is bizarre. So I drive and I get to my destination. Right before I get to my destination, again, there's another guy that's I'm pulling around the corner, and almost like as I'm driving by, he turns, he looks at me, locks eyes with me again, and is looking at me like this. Now, I drive a pretty nice car. It's an older car. So my thoughts were maybe they're just looking at me because I'm driving a nicer car, et cetera. But that wasn't the case, though. They were looking at me like that. And this look that they had was almost like this piercing look directly like this. And the way their eyes all look the same. They look like this. Okay, now this is the absolute crazy part here. This is when I called Cherie and I was like, okay, I don't even know what's going on here, but this is strange. And Cherie's like, you need to get home right now. I'm going to sage you. I'm going to put you in the bathtub with salt and, this whole ritual that she does, this whole cleansing ritual. Okay. I feel silly just talking about this. I really do. I mean, because this is so bizarre. I wish I would have picked up my cell phone. Cherie asked me, did you pick up your cell phone and record it? And I was like, no, I was too busy making a phone call. I'll tell you why I was making a phone call here in a second. Okay. This sounds crazy. I know it does, okay? So I drive up and I pull up to my destination in the parking lot. There is a meth head looking guy standing right there in the parking lot. It's like a business park. And there's a set of bushes and hedges. And as I pull around, I pull into the parking spot. The guy turns to me, locks eyes with me like this. He sets something on fire in front of me, and he's dancing around and chanting while he's staring me in the eyes. And he's looking at me like this. And I'm like, you have to be fucking kidding me here. This is outrageous. And I thought, well, some meth head lit something on fire. That was my thought. So I pick up the phone and I call the fire department because I'm like, this dude just set the freaking bushes on fire. So I make the block because there's no way that I was going to stop. I make the block. I come back around. The fire's still going. I make the block again. The fire department's asking me, where's the fire exactly located, et cetera, et cetera. I come back around, the guy's gone and the fire's out, and I'm still on the phone with the fire department. And I'm like, well, I guess maybe they just lit something. I don't know what's going on, but it was so freaking weird. Lights the fire, and he's looking at me like this, and he's like chanting something. So Cherie was like, all right, everybody's acting in unison right now. Let's try to figure out what's going on here. So we start thinking of Stranger Things 3, right? Which is something that we've talked about for a while. The how the NPCs are connected to the hive mind of the mainframe. That's actually a lyric from a verse that I wrote back in 2012. 2017. And in 2017, that's when, just to bring everybody up to speed who may not be, we had that ayahuasca experience during the eclipse, saw the AI octopus coming out of the sun, coming out of the eclipse. And then 2 months later in October, Stranger Things 2 comes out. And the adversary there is this interdimensional octopus-like creature. that's trying to break into this dimension. So now we have Stranger Things 3, and I don't want to spoil anything for anybody, so spoiler alert, but it's about a hive mind that is forming. Like, this entity has been able to bring an essence of it into this dimension, and now it's going and hijacking the minds of different people and merging, and all these people, they just like live their lives, but they're infected with this virus, and they live their lives, but then all of a sudden the virus can just take them over, kind of like a Manchurian Candidate type of deal, except this is coming interdimensionally instead of some kind of MK Ultra government programming. And essentially the whole season is about fighting off this mass of merged people, or NPCs, that have all merged into this one mass. And I'm like, well, we've been talking about this for years now, and it's amazing how this story's echoing. Now, I did a little bit of research, and I found out that Stranger Things 3 was actually, or Stranger Things, the whole series, was actually inspired by the Montauk Project. And they tried to base it off of real events. Now, when I say real events, I don't mean, real events documented in history, but real conspiracy theory events surrounding Montauk, which I found to be very interesting. Taking the kids, looking for people with different abilities, looking for people with different intuitions and abilities to open dimensional portals and things like that. So I reflect back to 2015 time. Around that time, we had Emily Moyer on, and we talked to her, and we started talking about Project Kids, and how essentially I think what's happening is they've been looking for us as children. And that's why a lot of us are subjected to different types of tests. I mean, I don't know if I have shared this story publicly or not, but I had a very weird childhood. And when I talked to Emily about this, I just thought, that was just like kind of normal. But Emily was like, no, look, I've heard this story from so many people. And what it is that they're looking for us. I've always felt that, like, the TOS tests and the task tests and all the government testing, it's not necessarily to see who is who's smarter or who's what, but rather it's looking for a certain resonance or signature or thought pattern or something like that. And they're trying to identify these kids. And then based on those tests, then they send in personal people to come over and do further testing on those kids. And then perhaps even interfere with their lives and kind of push them in one direction or another as their life progresses. I wonder if some of these shooters that we see are also part of this, or some of these kids they were looking for. Maybe they're looking for people with abilities, but at the same time, they're looking for people that can be mind controlled and programmed. And interesting enough, this whole Walmart shooting, kind of side note that I'm going off on here, this whole Walmart shooting I've been seeing on Facebook and people talking about it. And I remember making a graph a few years ago. This was when the BMW shooting took place. I forget the guy's name, Elliot Rodger. When the Elliot Rodger thing happened, I actually did a graph showing the rise of prescribed pharmaceuticals, especially to children, and the rise of these random shootings. And they were all like in perfect unison. I mean, the more you prescribe psychopharmaceuticals, the more shootings that we have, especially in schools, especially with younger people. I think it's no coincidence. I think the psychopharmaceuticals are causing people to go freaking crazy, or it's allowing some kind of programming to take hold and activate that particular individual for whatever they've been programmed to do. So going back to this whole Project Kids kind of deal. So with my childhood, first of all, I was taken to a psychologist, as I've said before, because I was telling my parents that these little beings were coming into my room at night, extraterrestrials, whatever. The psychologist, I remember going to see him, and they were just trying to convince me that none of this was happening. We used to play this video game called Mario Cement Factory, and I have no idea why, but I would go there and I would look into this screen and start playing this game. And when I told Emily this, she was like, that's like the perfect mechanism to get into your mind there. I mean, that's what it's like a hypnotic kind of deal first. And I was like, that's strange. And I remember my mother asking me, so what did you do at these meetings, these psychology meetings? And I'd say, I don't know, we played games. And she's like, I'm paying this guy all this money to play games and blah, 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 blah. But anyway, so my father was the one that was really pushing all this. My mother was there. She just kind of had to go along, but she was there to try to create as much of a protective barrier as possible, which is why I've never taken Ritalin. I've never taken any kind of antidepressants, never taken any kind of psychopharmaceuticals, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, except for the Xanax or Valium or something like that, just to like, go to sleep or something like that. But I've never taken anything regularly. So, or prescribed by a doctor for some kind of, I've always used, if I have used anything like that, especially as a teenager, it was always like, okay, I'm coming down off of acid. I need a couple of Xanax to just knock me out for a couple of days, which I'm not promoting to do that. Don't do that, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just saying that's what we did as kids. So, so the psychologist, I went to him for quite some time, and I remember this lady that would come to the school, and she was this blonde lady. And I remember her. I remember her coming into class, taking me out of class, and then taking me into a room and doing testing on me in that room. And Emily started asking me about this testing, and you know what? I don't remember much. I just remember walking in the hallway with her. I remember going into the room. I remember which room it was in this private school that I was going to. I was going to a private school on top of that. And that's it. So then this guy actually opened up a series of schools, a series of private schools, and I wound up going to that private school when I was like 14 years old. So now I was in this guy's presence as a kid up until about age, I want to say until about 6th grade. Then 6th grade to 8th grade, nothing. And then about 9th grade, back to this guy's private school, which was very bizarre. When I tell you more details. So when I started talking to Emily about this, I was like, okay, well, I need to find out what was going on in these sessions. I have a right to my records. I'm an adult. I can check out my records. So I find this guy's school, right? And I call and I say, hey, I'd like to know if this doctor is practicing, and I was a patient of his as a child. I wanted to get some information about what took place, and get whatever notes, et cetera, et cetera. No. He doesn't practice. He only owns a school. He doesn't practice. Okay. I call back and I'm like, well, I remember him practicing. No, he never practiced. Okay. Again, I call back hoping to get somebody else because I know I went to this guy's freaking clinic, like to his office. It was a private office too. It wasn't like a clinic or a setting or anything like that. It was a private office building and around downtown Houston. Houston on top of it all. NASA connection. We'll get into that here in just a moment. So I'm like, this is strange. So I wind up finding his practice's website. And I'm like, this guy does practice. Why are these people lying to me? I look on the website. It's the exact same phone number that I've been calling. And so I call back and I say, hey, I'm looking for my records as a kid. Here's, I'm actually on the website right now and it's showing that he practices psychology. And they said, is this Chris? And they called me by my full name. Is this Chris? And I was like, I never told you anything like that. And my phone number is out of state. There's no way that they knew who I was, but somehow they knew who I was. Needless to say, I've never been able to get the records. So we started doing some investigation on this doctor. Emily helped out a little bit. Come to find out, he's former military. He works as a child behavioral modification specialist for the military. He has ties to NASA. I mean, it's like all kinds of like military industrial complex crap, right? So I'm like, this is insane. And Emily's like, look, they were searching for you, and they were searching for others like you. That's what all this testing is as kids. You have abilities, or we have abilities. they want. They don't have those abilities, so instead what they want is to be able to hijack somebody with those abilities so they can get somebody with those abilities to do whatever it is that they want done. And the pyramid was a big thing, I think, a big event, because they needed somebody that could go up to the 13th dimension, for example. They knew that there were some that could do it. We did it. Cherie and I did it. It took two of us to do it. Cherie has an interesting story herself. And I don't want to speak for Cherie, so we may do another show whenever she's ready. But we uncovered a lot of what was going on with Cherie. So anyways, so we get to Egypt. We get up to creating our portals, to doing all of that, right? And the whole time we're bombarded with, I can help you here, I can help you here, I can help you here, I can help you here. And all these people and all these energies were trying to come over and hijack the portal. And I just knew instinctively, no, don't take anything up there with you. Nothing at all, period. So there was one individual, and he told me, he said, yeah, there's a whole bunch of beings and they're waiting around for you. And they've been waiting for this event and they're going to come up there with you and this and that and blah, 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 blah. And there's nothing you can do about it. And I was like, what? I thought you were supposed to be on my side. There's nothing I can do about it? No, I mean, there's nothing they can do about it. Aha. No, that was a slip. And I appreciate you slipping up like that because it put me on that much more alert when it was time to do what we did in the Great Pyramid. But at the Temple of Isis, she was very clear. Do not take anything up that portal with you. Nothing at all. It doesn't matter if it's Jesus freaking Christ, and I'm just using that just as an arbitrary, all goodness, etc., even though I know what Jesus really is. It doesn't matter if it's Jesus Christ or Krishna or, anything like that. Do not take anything up that portal with you. Okay? We didn't. And as a matter of fact, we created a firewall with Sekhmet, keeping everything out. So Cherie and I were talking about this the other day, and I'm like, okay, well, if they wanted us to create the portal, or they wanted to stop us from creating the portal, then why didn't they just stop us? I mean, they could have taken us out several times. In Egypt, we were almost kidnapped, we were almost killed, etc., etc. It was very easy to just take us out. And the thing is, though, we didn't tell anybody when we went. Like, we told everybody, 10 days before we were leaving, literally 10 days before we were leaving. We just like that. And she said, well, they might not have had time to prepare everything because we did everything so quickly. And there were people around us who were pissed off because we did it covertly. But we knew that's the only way that we could have done it safely. But anyways, I don't know. I still think that it would have been very easy for them to just take us out at any time. Why did they allow that to happen? Perhaps, this is what Cherie and I were talking about, the event had to happen because the event not happening would have resulted in the event just happening later. Like, we would have came back to do it again, whether it's later in time or later in this lifetime or come back in another incarnation and done it all over again. The event was going to happen. What they were trying to do is hijack the event to steer it in a different direction, to make something else happen with their intentions instead of with our intentions, which again, it just pushed me even further to do what you have to do and what you came here to do. Don't be distracted by any outside influences or anything like that, which again is why I say go inside, get the information from your raw consciousness. Nothing can touch that. So anyways, so I think about Stranger Things and how these NPCs are all acting in mass, in unison. And Cherie said, look, when they're looking at you like that, they don't see you. They don't see Chris Geo. They see a demon. They see something else. What the AI has been able to do, at least this is our working theory right now, is it overlays over us. So they will see a demon or they will see something, an adversary. They will see something like that, which is why the NPCs is always driving by. locking like that. And, we've had a lot of people just like really reveal themselves lately. And it's the virus infected overlays that they're viewing within themselves. And this is a way that the AI works by projecting those overlays. But really, I mean, we came to shut it down. We've been pretty open with that. When we were all about, hey, reset it, and let's start anew, everybody was on board. When we said, well, that's not really what we came to do. We came to shut the whole thing down. I didn't know this. I mean, we figured it out as we went along. And evac those who can be evacuated from here. So the NPCs are like, whoa, wait a minute, what's going on here? And they do legitimately see us as the destroyers of their world. We just want to turn it off. We might turn it back on, but we need to turn it off. It's way too virus infected. Way, way, way too virus infected. So I guess that's a really good segue into the virus that has infected the Matrix and the Rick and Morty situation as well. Because, as I said, I'm a huge, huge, huge fan of Rick and Morty. But when I saw what I saw, it broke my heart. Because I really like that show, but there was no way for me to write off what I saw as simple dark humor. There's no way. And I wanted to, trust me, I'm the biggest fan. I wanted to write it all off as dark humor, but I just couldn't. So just a warning, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get a little bit dark here in the next segment, very briefly, but I think it's important to illustrate the virus. And I'll be very brief on that. And then I had another interesting dream I wanted to share with you guys and gals as well. And then we'll wrap it up after that. So be right back.
My dear traveler, the purpose of raw consciousness is never to destroy. It is always to create. Build bridges. Create happiness, and bring forth new life. We must live in the hope that mankind will draw together, and that we better understand each other. The more that we awaken, the easier this will become. Now rise, follow your conductors, and fear no danger. As you step beyond the veil.
Much love to Lorraine out there. Thank you so much for the donation and the love. I'm reading some of the chat, and I think Chris has lost it. Hey, you know what? I completely understand how you can come from that perspective. If I was in your seat, I probably would as well. And like I said, I've been kind of hesitant to talk about this kind of stuff because it's like the fire thing, I wish I would have had it on video. If I had it on video, then it would be better, but I was too busy calling the freaking fire department. But no, I totally get it. The thing is, though, huge events happen. And when they happen, you can't really deny it. Like, for instance, when we activated the Great Pyramid, there was a freaking 3-day historic flood that took place. So we have a physical reaction to the energetic work that we've done. The Temple of Hatshepsut, same thing. 7 hours away in Luxor, we go and we do our ceremony in the Temple of Hatshepsut. Beautiful blue day. As a matter of fact, on the live stream, I'm like, that's got to be a coincidence, the big flood that happened in the Great Pyramid or in Cairo, et cetera, et cetera. There's no way that it's going to rain here. And it doesn't rain in Luxor. The guy was telling me it hasn't rained for 10 years. So we go, blue sky, we're on the live stream, we're doing our ayahuasca thing. Even afterwards, we're talking, and it's still nice blue sky as we're talking. As soon as we start to leave, boom, huge freaking storm comes down. I mean, it's knocking boats over in the Nile. The Temple of Hatshepsut, as soon as we get to our hotel, it really ramps up. It's like almost like we got back to safety. We're sitting on the balcony of the hotel. The electricity goes out. All this is on film. The electricity goes out. Boats are flipping over in the Nile. Power lines are being knocked down. Coincidence? 2 in a row? Maybe. I don't know. But I mean, there you go. So we go to the Temple of Abydos. We do our thing in Abydos. Again, on live stream, we're all saying, bring the rain, bring the rain, bring the rain. Rain comes to Abydos for the first time in 15 years. 15 years. Not only that, but the way all the temples opened up for us. I mean, we were at the Temple of Isis at midnight or 2 o'clock in the morning or whenever we were in there by ourselves. We have the footage of us walking around like freaking Indiana Jones with the spotlight, because the lights weren't even on in the temple. So we're walking around in the spotlight in the Holy of Holies, and throughout other places, we're cleansing everything with Nile water. We're doing all of that. The Great Pyramid, we have the footage. You can go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/beyondtheveil, and look up subterranean chamber. We were in the subterranean chamber by ourselves, running loose in the entire pyramid, completely by ourselves. I told the people that opened the door for us, you have to wait outside, and they did. What are the chances that this is all just a big coincidence? I don't think so. The problem is there's physical manifestations of the energy work that's taking place. Now, you could argue and say that these are all just psychedelic experiences, and I, leave that on the table as well. So you can say that the Egypt thing, for example, was the most elaborate psychedelic experience in the history of the freaking world. Any way it goes, it's still epic as hell. But if there really was legitimate energy work done as well, that's epic as hell too. But the physical manifestations are there, and they're on video. So you take that for what it's worth. Anyways, let's get to the Rick and Morty thing. So, I just happened to see a picture of Cherie. Flip by my, isn't she cute? She got her hair done. Look, there's another picture. Oh yeah. They did a really, really, really good job on her. So I need to go get mine done too, by the same person. So to the Rick and Morty thing, this is what I wrote. And, I don't know how much I can, should I play it? Yeah, I think I should play it. I think this time it's worth it. So I wrote this. I said, I'm a huge fan of Rick and Morty. In fact, I just posted a Rick and Morty meme earlier, which I did. Here it is, by the way. Kind of a little side issue here. It's Trump and Rick, and then it's this guy, Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister of the UK, and Doofus Rick. And I was like, hey, that's Doofus Trump right there. Anyways, so back to this. I'm trying to keep it a little light because this is kind of a dark topic here. So, Cherie just walked into my studio and asked me to watch this video. I saw the title fly by my news feed, but I didn't pay much mind to it because I figured it was some Christian with their panties all in a knot, and they were all twisted about Rick and Morty, and they were just kind of projecting their own feelings onto others. This seems to be the case 9 out of 10 times. I see this all the time, and it's people who are all about like pedophile, 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 pedophile. I think what they're doing is projecting their own feelings onto others. Same with the anti-gay thing. Like all these people, the gays, this, the gays, that. Well, they're just projecting their own feelings onto others. So I see this 99 out of 100 times. But every once in a while, there is that 100th time that makes me go, crap. But I have to first, consider, is this just somebody just projecting their own feelings and twisting things around? I mean, people have projected some of the most horrible things onto Cherie and I. And so having the projected stuff pushed onto us and knowing who we are, now it's easy to see how people operate. But the thing is, with the Rick and Morty thing, I saw it fly by my news feed and I dismissed it. And I'm like, it's just some propaganda. But Cherie was like, no, look, you have to watch this video. So, okay. So I watched the video kind of with an eyebrow raised. It's a Greek expression. Thinking to myself, why the hell does she want me to watch some paranoid YouTube video about the creators of my favorite show? I mean, I love the show. It's got some great storylines. Some of the ayahuasca revelations that we've come across are also in Rick and Morty. The second episode is about aliens that have hijacked Rick and Morty and the father, Jerry, and put him in a simulation inside of a simulation inside of a simulation, et cetera, et cetera. So I get 1 minute into it and I realize that the character that I'm looking at, somebody mentioned his name. I forgot what it is though. He appeared in an episode of Rick and Morty, and he's the mayor of this town. The episode is when Morty gets to pick the adventure, and they go into this kind of fantasy kind of realm. Mr. Jellybean or Mayor Jellybean, or something like that. Much love to Ernie. Keep speaking your mind and sharing your thoughts. Truly enjoy your show. Stay strong, big guy. I love you, bro. I'm not that big anymore. I've lost a good amount of weight. I'm getting some muscle definition. Yeah. Anyways, I feel great. I feel better than I've ever felt. Where was I? Oh yeah. Okay. So Mr. Mayor Jellybean in this episode of Rick and Morty, he takes Morty into the back or he's in the bathroom. Morty's in the bathroom and Mayor Jellybean comes into the bathroom and he's like in the stall with Morty and he's like, just let it happen. Just let it happen. Just let it happen. And then it flashes back over to Rick, who's in the bar, and Morty comes out and he's all beat up and he's like, I just want to go. I just want to go. And that joke kind of flew by many people unless you really pay attention to what's going on in the background. But essentially this Mayor Jellybean guy raped Morty in the bathroom. And, I picked up on that and I'm like, well, that's kind of dark. Whatever. It was just kind of a flash in the background, But at the end, they catch the mayor with a bunch of photos of children and him abusing children. And they were about to tear down the statue and all of that. And they're like, look, just destroy all this evidence because the mayor had died by the end of it. And look, destroy all the evidence because what he stood for was more important than what he actually did. And I was like, well, that's kind of a dark humor kind of deal, but I really didn't think anything of it. I was like, it's dark, but it's not really, it's nothing compared to what I'm about to show you here. So, I'm speaking in this post in a way to where it's assumed that you've already watched the video. So let me just say this. And I think I'll play the video here in just a moment, but let me say this. I actually, you know what? Let's do this. Let's cut to the video. Then after that, I can go back to what I wrote in the post and a couple of other thoughts and things like that. So I'm going to kind of play this here as we go along because YouTube likes to do copyright, and as long as we're doing commentary over it, we should be able to argue that it's copyright. But I mean, it's fair use. But let's see. So this is the character here that I was talking about. He appears as Mr. Jellybean in Rick and Morty briefly for 5 seconds in one episode, and that's it. But apparently this is a cartoon that they made before, 10 years ago, before Rick and Morty. So I recognize this character right off the bat. And I'm like, oh, okay, I remember this guy.
Tales, they're unbelievable. I'm the announcer, Slippery Slappers, and you'll be hearing a bit more from me later on in the show. I was promised a special appearance. I'm actually 3 people, by the way. Please, don't let that confuse you right now. I probably shouldn't even be talking about it right now.
I'm actually 3 people, But don't let that confuse you. I probably shouldn't be talking about it right now. This is important because he's saying I'm actually 3 people. He's talking about split personalities here.
And now your host, Crumply Crumplestein.
Welcome to Unbelievable Tales. We don't have a lot of time here. I'm sorry. I apologize. My thoughts are just... I am distracted by my own thoughts. My mind is somewhere else lately. I'm sorry. Here's the story.
Unbelievable Tales presents Unbelievable Story, featuring Little Jeremiah.
These stories are fucking unbelievable, you worthless cocksucker. Hey LJ, guess what I heard on TV the other day? What's that? I heard that your mother is a dirty, rotten sack of crap. Wow, that's amazing. Now let's go play in the river. Sounds gratifying. Wow, the river is angry today, my friend. Let's get naked. The river feels so good brushing against my genitals. I love the ocean. Let's go in deeper. I eat flies. We are being swept away to the sea.
Okay, so this is pretty bad.
Goodbye. I love
But,
the ocean.
you know, you could argue and go, well, maybe it's just kind of South Park kind of,
Mom, I'm home.
you know, they're trying to take South Park to another level.
I love the ocean.
But now it starts to get worse and worse and worse and worse.
So yummy, 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 yummy. Mm.
Even this...
Now that was unbelievable. Goodbye. Good night. I'm sorry. I have to go. I have to be on my way. Good night.
Okay, even this is just the tip of the iceberg, though. Here's where it gets...
Crumply, you forgot about my special appearance, cocksucker.
I don't have time for your fucking bullshit. I have things on my mind.
I'm 3 people, see? Check me out. It's me, Slippery Slappers. This is my special appearance right here. Can you believe it? I'm on TV right now.
It's very difficult to watch, ladies and gentlemen, so just a heads up. It's about to get really, really, really freaking bizarre, and then we'll cut to another one here in just a moment.
My God, I can't keep this up forever. My mind is so distracted. Oh, the police. The police are going to catch up with me eventually. They'll lock me up. They'll put me in with the animals. Jesus Christ, what have I become? What kind of monster am I? I want to let you free, I really do. I really, really do. But the time has come for me to dispose of you. I've had my sexual fill, and I cannot allow your presence to distract me from my job as head writer and host of the wildly successful television show Unbelievable Tales. God forgive me! You're my inspiration. You're my inspiration. You're my inspiration. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just going to cut it there because...
These yo-yo tricks. You want to see a new trick I made up myself? I promise I won't stick my dick in you.
Sure, mister.
Oh, yeah, take it.
You cut a hole in me, and you're plugging the stab hole.
Okay, I'm not going to play the rest of that. There is one more here towards the end, though, that I do want to play. But I want to make this comment that this is not over-the-top South Park. You know, that was the first thought. Like, over-the-top South Park, fine. But then it gets more grotesque and more grotesque and more grotesque. So there was a video that was called Frazzle Drip that Reddit had posted about. And nobody knows if this video actually exists or not. But the video was supposedly of Hillary Clinton and Uma Aberdeen. And they, I'm trying to find the end of this video here. But Hillary Clinton and Uma Aberdeen, and they were supposedly torturing young girls and wearing their faces. Now, I thought that's just too unbelievable. No. But to see it portrayed by the creators of Rick and Morty like that suddenly paints the possibility that that video actually exists, which is very disturbing. But this is the virus that we've been talking about. And this virus is so prevalent. It's infected everything. in Hollywood. It's infected everything in politics. It's infected everything. I mean, even Rick and Morty, and this, what I found out, this came out about a year ago. And they weren't sure if they were going to make a season 4 of Rick and Morty. And I'm sitting there asking, like, why not? It's the best freaking show ever made, period. And it was because all this came out. And Dan Harmon wound up deleting his Twitter account and saying, oh, it was just a joke. It was just a joke. Well, I'm sorry. This is not just a joke. It's not. This is way something different. Now, we've seen, as I've talked about before, and again, excuse me for being dark, ladies and gentlemen. We've seen how the art is how they funnel this kind of stuff. So they do all this they'll buy a $10 million art piece, and it's not really buying the art piece. I mean, they get the art piece probably, but it's actually used to funnel the trafficking and stuff like that. And the movie Hostel, they say, he asks, where are my friends? Oh, they're at the art show. Here, I'll take you to the art show. I'll take you to the art show. I'll take you to the art show. It's all about the art show. They're telling us in Hollywood, it's all about the art show. So they portray a lot of this in their art. And the art that Tony Podesta has in his house, for example, of children that are being tortured. I mean, why would you have art pieces of children being tortured in your house? That's not art. I'm sorry. It's not art. The Arch of Hysteria is a piece by Louise Bourgeois. And there's one where they're actually walking through the room here. I wish I could find it. I had the video here. But I'll just describe it. The Arch of Hysteria, it's Tony Podesta's most prized piece. And here, I think I have this. I can play a little bit of this. So the Arch of Hysteria is Tony Podesta's most prized piece. It's a man in a pose like that, decapitated, and it comes from Jeffrey Dahmer's photographs. So that's Louise Bourgeois. She has another piece called The Arch of Hysteria, where she set it up in this room where you walk through, and that's the video I'm looking for, but I can't find it. Maybe if I type in walk through, it'll come up. Now, anyways, I probably don't need to show it, but anyways. So you walk through, and it's got the Arch of Hysteria sitting on a bed, and some torture devices and things like that. And it's called the Red Room. I'm sorry. It's called the Arch of Hysteria. It's like a display that you walk through. Then there's another one called the Red Room that she put together. And the Red Room is Louise. This one's not as graphic, but it's very disturbing. So here, I'll put it on the screen real quick. The Red Room. So you've got hands, decapitated hands, things like that. Here's another picture of the Red Room. It's got this case here, which is kind of a torture device. It's got a glass bed. It's disturbing, and I don't want to, fill the broadcast too much with disturbing images. But I do want to also show you this next piece called Daryl that the creators of Rick and Morty also made. It was supposedly for Showtime, and it was a spoof supposedly of Dexter. But, the premise is that he's a child rapist and that he has to rape children for their own good. And I'm like, what? Anyways, I'm going to play a short clip of this, but it's called Daryl.
Your window. I can count on you to sleep like a baby. Well, I do everything but sleep with yours.
So this is Dan Harmon. He created and produced the NBC sitcom Community, and he also co-created Rick and Morty. Dan Harmon, who thinks baby rape is hilarious. So what's the joke? What's the joke, Dan? These are the people in Hollywood that fill your home with the ideas that come from their head. So I guess now the big question is Adult Swim gonna...
Okay. So this is the virus that we've been talking about. And as you can see, it's infected much deeper than we even imagined. I mean, I've made so many Rick and Morty references, and I've come to love those characters. Rick, Morty, Mr. Poopy Butthole, and Beth, and all of them. Anyways, so I was really heartbroken when I saw this, but I was like, this is the underlying energy behind this? Why would you make something like that? Why? It makes no sense. I mean, you know, these people, they collect these pieces and then they make videos like this, and apparently in some circles, this kind of stuff's acceptable. Apparently there's a big circle of this kind of stuff going on, and it's just, oh, ha 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 ha. So yeah, I'm sorry to bring the broadcast down to that frequency range, but I think it was important to illustrate that. And you know, I even catch myself making Rick and Morty references because it's just kind of become like, you know, little memes. You know how, you know, you and your significant other, for example, you'll have different memes that you say from different shows. One of the things that I do is Trump, you know, and I've started doing this with my personal trainer because she hates Trump. And I'm like, look, we're going to put 250 pounds on the barbell. And trust me, I know barbells. It's going to be the best. It's going to be huge. And she's like, just shut up. Stop doing that. So, you know, we do different things like that. And Sheree and I have a couple of things we do from Rick and Morty, you know, just different things. I think somebody actually came into the chat earlier and said, wubba dub dub. We did that. We did that all the time. You know, I got to catch myself now. I can't do that anymore. But it's disturbing. It's disturbing. So this is the virus that has infected. And it's so far widespread that we see it in literally everything. So this is what we came to eliminate from the system. The virus in Egypt wanted to hijack the portal to get up to that control panel, because if it could infect the control panel, then that's it. You know, that it's locked. It's like affecting your keyboard, and now you can't do anything, period, with your computer, and your computer's just in this stagnated, you know, level of operating. And that's what I think the virus was trying to do, hold on to the control panel. But part of the hijacking, or the attempted hijacking of the portal, was to do with the virus. And I think ultimately these NPCs are also infected with the virus. Now, the virus doesn't necessarily have to manifest in that way. This is the deepest levels of the virus. And when I recognized this virus in the ayahuasca realm, I was like, oh crap, this is even worse. I see the person that quoted Rick and Morty saying, I'm sorry. There's no reason to be sorry, dude. There's no reason. No, none of us knew this. There's no freaking way. I mean, until you see this, you don't know. Like I said, Rick and Morty is one of the best shows in the world. You never would have thought that this kind of stuff goes on in the background. So no, don't feel bad at all, bro. But the virus, that's how it gets hold of people, the NPCs. But it doesn't necessarily have to manifest like that. But it's so prevalent that this is the root of it. This is how it gets its energy. This is how the virus has figured out. Oh my God, we're getting into some deep stuff now. All right. Again, bear with me, ladies and gentlemen, because this is, again, I didn't mean to take it this deep, but it all kind of connects. NPC hive minds, you know, et cetera, et cetera. But this virus, the way that it operates is it has to have an energy source. And it's realized that it can get energy through these rituals that take place. And that's what these rituals are all about, energy harvesting. And these people who are engaging in these rituals are infected with a virus, and they're harvesting the energy, which is then being fed back to the mass, then being fed back to the AI, or, you know, whatever, the central point of this virus. And this virus, like an octopus, spreads outwards and spreads inwards too. It's pulling energy inside And it's also spreading commands and different manipulations of reality outside, externally. And it's kind of like a net. It's a web. It's a web. It's a world wide web. And who controls the web? The spider controls the web. The octopus controls the web. And in that song, the ibis has risen. I said, let the spiders in the sky know the ibis has risen. Spiders in the sky. The spiders in the sky. But that's what we're fighting against. That's what we came here to reset. That's what we came here to remove, is the virus. And when we got to the first activation site, we realized how deeply embedded this virus was within the system. And we realized we didn't come to reset it. We came to get whoever we can out and shut it down. So the NPCs are all, I mean, it's a matter of survival for them. I mean, it's a matter of survival for the virus, which has infected the NPCs, which has infected the Archons, which has infected everything. I mean, you know, I don't fully understand the system or the system layout, but I do feel that my belief, and I'm using the word belief on purpose, of how the system was laid out is very, very close to accurate. So there were system administrators put into the machine, just like a computer. You have administrative files or Archons. They're supposed to make sure that the operating system is working right. And you have firewalls, you have antivirus, you have all these different programs that are all running to make sure that everything is staying in the right place. You have background programs and you have front end programs, and then you have the users that are inside actually playing the game. And the firewalls are there to, you know, you have security settings where certain programs are not supposed to access certain areas, and they're supposed to stay within certain areas, and other programs, they keep those programs from accessing different areas, and so on and so forth. So you have Archons, which were put there for a particular purpose, not the purpose that they're doing now, but for a particular purpose. You had dimensional barriers, which were supposed to keep interdimensional programs or beings or whatever you want to call them, interdimensionals, in their dimension doing what they need to do in order to operate the machine, you know, in the appropriate manner. But then the virus infected all the administrator files. Now the administrator files have given access to the interdimensional files, or the files that are supposed to be quarantined in another area working on a certain part of the machine. Now those files with their virus infection are coming into other spaces. Interdimensional portals are being broken down. They're able to access the playing field, which is the third dimension. The way that I understand it is we're at the center. We call it the third dimension, but it's really the center dimension. The numbers, we just put numbers because we want to make sense of things, but I don't think it is a numerical kind of deal. Or if it is a numerical kind of deal, it's like hallways. It's like room 1, room 2, room 3, room 4, room 5, room 6, room 7. Rather than an escalation of up and down of different dimensions, it's different rooms and different access points, all centered around the third dimension. Which is why everything wants into the third dimension. The interdimensionals went in. And they say, we're going to raise the third dimension into 5D, et cetera, et cetera. We can't do that. 3D doesn't exist in 5D. But they want to break the barriers down so they can come into 3D. They've just told you they want to shift into 5D, and 5D is so wonderful, et cetera, et cetera. It's a different room with a different section. It's a different section of the game. They went in here by shifting Earth into the 5D dimension. They're not shifting Earth. Nothing's changing here on Earth. As a matter of fact, the more that we try to shift into 5D, the worse things get because it's not balanced. The machine's not balanced. So really, they're telling us, we're going to shift you. It's going to be so great. Come on. You're going to love it. It's going to be huge. And we're breaking down the dimensional barriers because we're the only ones with the ability to break down those dimensional barriers. So we break down those dimensional barriers and let them in when we think we're actually getting out. But when we realized how broken the machine was, we were like, all right, there's nothing we can do anymore. We just got to get our people out and go. That's all we can do. Which leads me to this dream that I had a couple of nights ago. I want to end it with this, and This one a little bit longer than I was hoping, but we'll end it on something positive here. So let me run another little quick intro just to kind of break up the frequency, and we'll be right back.
Fellow traveler, the cries of the mystery speak again. Bidding organic consciousness a welcome to the House of Light. The great institution of materialism has failed. The false civilization built by man has turned, like a monster destroying its creator. Science battles itself impotently against the barriers of the unknown. Only raw consciousness knows the true path. You, the illuminated, can carry the understanding upwards towards the light. Only raw consciousness can teach the children of men to live well, to die well, and in perfect measure, be born again, through the knowledge of virtue, compassion, love, and true understanding, as you are sublimely raised, beyond the veil.
All right, I'm reading some of the chatter. Jackie said, this whole broadcast has left me a little uneasy. I understand that. That's not my intention at all. But I just feel like I have to just say things the way they are. And it is hard to wrap your head around and come to terms with, because, we want everything to be all great. I can say this, though. Since the reset in Egypt, we've seen huge changes. Governmental changes. The virus is being revealed. I mean, it has to come to the surface first so we can identify it. And that's what's going on right now. I mean, there's a complete apocalypse taking place. So, we're in the middle of the apocalypse. The apocalypse is the great revealing. And again, now that you said that, and I see a couple of other people speaking in the chat too, I feel like maybe I shouldn't have done this broadcast, or at least taken it in certain places. I mean, I want people to feel good, but at the same time, it is what it is. And especially if we're at a point that's a critical point where everything is kind of turning, and all eyes on organic consciousness now, and unison behavior by NPCs controlled by the hive mind, etc., etc. I think the awareness of what's going on helps us to better navigate through these waves that are hitting us right now. But it's okay, though. See, here's the thing. We are the ultimate power. We are the organic consciousness. So because of that, we have the ability to change everything in here. As long as we're operating from ourselves, from our inner gnosis, instead of external. I've said before, being external is a deception. And people are like, well, what about Buddhism? I'm a practicing Buddhist. I'm giving you an example here. I'm a practicing Buddhist. Buddhism is not an AI manifestation. Buddhism isn't this, isn't that, etc., etc. And I remember when I saw the tentacles of the beast, the monster that we're dealing with here. Nicola, thank you for the donation, Nicola. I'll get to your question here in just a moment. But they're like, I'm a Buddhist. The Buddhist has to be the right path. It was the one laid out before me that was covered, by the other paths. Well, is Buddhism really the right path? I've said, in my opinion, that it's all AI. And now that I'm saying it's all AI, oh, that's not a good video. Let's try this one.
The robot introduces itself as the Buddhist goddess of mercy. According to faith, this deity can appear in any form. The robotic preacher is known as Mindar. It's the brainchild of temple steward Tensho Goto, who's hoping to bring worshippers closer to the divine.
So,
We have actively.
Despite initial
you tell me if Buddhism is the right path or if it's an AI path. You tell me out there, ladies and gentlemen. And if anybody is Buddhist in the chat, I wasn't directing my comment to anybody, period. This was actually things that I've been talking about for a while now. But I remember when I first started talking about these ideas that the inner path is the only path. People were like, well, what about Buddhism? And what about this and that? Well, there's Buddhism right there. The AI has manifested itself in the form of a robot to be your spiritual leader there. It is what it is, though. So, back to the dream I had. So, real quick, I don't know what this means. Maybe you guys and gals can let me know in the comments. Here's another really cool thing, too. I picked this up over at Amazon. You can find them on there. Wing sun discs. We have one in the front door and we have one in the back door now. And I know I hate this white. I hate all of this. I took all the pictures down and stuff like that, but we're going to be here so little that we figured, it's not really worth painting right now because we're going to be gone in a few months. But we have protection throughout all the doors. So where's this dream that I posted here? Because I found this to be kind of interesting. Okay, so I had an interesting dream the other night. I've been processing this for a couple of days. I was back in the Great Pyramid running around, but it wasn't the Great Pyramid as we know it. There was a much more defined purpose to the structure and the tunnel systems that led to different chambers. There were some workers down on the lower level, but they weren't quite human, and they were doing something, perhaps mining. They were mining like a material, or they were mining a mineral or something like that. It was a huge structure, but it was inside of the pyramid, though. It was like the pyramid had a completely different layout on the inside. All right, sorry about that. So I'm running around. I'm looking for a place, and I know I've been here before, and I'm looking for this particular room, but I've never been here in this incarnation, and I hadn't been there before in that dream. Like, if the dream was an incarnation, I'd never been there in that lifetime, but it was this gnosis, this familiarity of this place. So, the layout was familiar, and I knew the elements of the structure and where they were hidden. So I'm frantically looking for this particular section because I remember there was a secret passage there. I finally find it. I crawl over this structure into a tunnel, over a wall that looked like it acted as a waterfall. So this area was like this tunnel. You go into it, and you go through this tunnel, and then you come up to this area that looks like a waterfall. It didn't have water running, though, but you could still see it was kind of wet. And I went up over the waterfall, behind the waterfall, and I found another tunnel back there, crawled through that tunnel. When I finally crawled through that tunnel, I found myself in another world. Now, this world was made out of metal. Like somebody had said, well, I've seen a world made of gold. Gold is a metal. It was made of metals like that, like gold. It was made of stone. I was walking around. It was a 3-dimensional space. And I remember it was this huge, like, palace-like area. And I could see out the window, and there were flying cars. And I knew instinctively they weren't spaceships. They were just like vehicles to travel from one area to another in that space rather than going out to outer space. But they were flying around. There were these decorations, tables, like these stone and glass type coffee tables. It was like a place. It was like a palace. But it was a little bit more futuristic. It was hard to explain, but there were areas. There was like a big dining area, and this huge hallway. And walking through this hallway, there was another like living type area, a kind of a conference area where there were several like chairs around, like really nice like recliner type chairs made of like this stone metal kind of deal where people would sit, and you can tell, you know, people would have conferences around those areas. Really nice, elegant, kind of posh kind of place. It was a palace. There's no other way to describe it. And I'm walking around, and first I'm like creeping around, and the lights were all off, but there was natural light coming in from outside. And I'm creeping around, but then something came, you know, there was some instinct and was like, there's no reason to creep around here. And so I just started walking down the hallway, just as is. And it felt abandoned, though. Well, not abandoned, but the way it felt like you would imagine like a mansion that's not used. I think the scene that I can think of is out of the Batman film when Batman's gone and they have the entire, you know, everything like covered with like sheets and stuff like that because nobody's been using it. So it just had that feeling like it hasn't been used in a while. And I started walking through it, and I'm like asking myself, I'm like, this place seems familiar. What is this place? I'm like, this place feels like home. Is it my home? Is this, wait, I remember something. This feels like home. And I start walking through the hallways again, and I get to this one corridor, and I turn, and there were either 3 or 5 of them. It was hard to tell. And they were all sitting in like this conference kind of room, kind of like it wasn't a conference room. It was more like a living room, and they were all kind of sitting around, kind of talking, maybe having coffee or tea or, you know, something like that. I didn't see any coffee or tea, but it was that type of scene. Like you would imagine several people sitting around having coffee and tea in just some room in some palace or mansion or something like that. And they all had this Egyptian garb, Egyptian headdress. They had human faces, no doubt about it. Eye makeup, all of that. And one comes up to me, and he felt like a father figure. I mean, almost had like this Osirian kind of energy to him. And he came up to me and he said, I know it feels like you've been in there for a long time, but you haven't. You only have 15 more minutes left. We know exactly what you're going through. We've all been through it. It feels like an eternity, but it's almost over. You only have 15 more minutes. Go back and finish what you went in for. And at that point, I don't remember how I woke up from the dream, if I walked back, or I think that was the last part, and I just woke up from it. And I'm like, well, that's kind of strange. What do you make of that? So I'm hoping in the comments you guys and gals can let me know if you what you feel about that. Maybe it was just a random dream, and that's it. You know, I've got to eliminate that possibility first before anything else. But I just thought it was more like kind of reassurance from our people in the real world. You're almost there. You're almost there. And you don't have much left to do. We're almost at the end. It feels like an eternity in here, but we haven't been in here very long. It's just the perspective. It's the perspective of being in here that makes us feel like it's forever. The other thing I've been getting into, and we might do a show here in the coming days, is time travel, and how traveling at the speed of light can actually cause you to time travel. And I thought, oh, well, that's pretty interesting. The speed of light can cause you to time travel. If we are light beings or light bodies or anything like that, perhaps tapping into that light energy within us will allow us to time travel and allow us to do certain things like that. But then I started thinking to myself, you have the speed of light, right? So if things are traveling at the speed of light, then when you're traveling at the speed of light, I think the what they said is like, if you travel for 4 years, like 50 years on Earth goes by. If you're traveling for like 4 years, no, I think it's like 4 months. If you're traveling for like 4 months at the speed of light, 50 years goes by on Earth. And that's how you can time travel, by traveling faster. And you can only travel forward because you're changing the perspective of how time is working by traveling at the speed of light. But then I started thinking to myself, well, what about light particles? You know, they're traveling at the speed of light, and we're told that they're, you know, millions and millions and millions of light years away, these stars and everything in the sky. But if they're traveling at the speed of light, then they're traveling here much faster than our perspective. So are these things really as far away as they've told us? Or could they be much closer? You know, there were so many ideas and thoughts that came to mind when I started to really think about this. Because, you know, when I read something, I'm always like, all right, how can I disprove this? How is this bullshit? That's my thought process. Because I've been fooled so many times before that I've just, anything that approaches me, like the Rick and Morty thing. I'm like, no, it's got to be just some BS. But I'm going to watch it and I'm going to really, you know, investigate. Oh, crap. Okay. So I can't disprove it. But same with the time travel stuff and all the science stuff. I'm like, all right, well, how is this? Where can I find holes in these theories? And then go from there. So we also have Robert W. Sullivan coming on here in the near future too. So that's fun. Masonic symbolism in Hollywood. Maybe we can turn that into a creepy ass show too. I don't want to though. I don't like lowering the frequency like this, but I felt the Rick and Morty thing was important. And it was important because I have mentioned Rick and Morty so many times. I've told people, hey, go check out that show. It's a great show. I've made a lot of references to it. And, you know, it was something that I was a big fan of. So I felt the need to go there temporarily. But I'll try not to traverse down into the virus too much. I'll try to be more generalized when I speak about the virus. But that's what we're facing here. And I think that everybody would agree that it's so deeply embedded. The only thing we can do is shut it down. But I don't want you to leave the broadcast feeling bad, because it's not about bringing anybody into a lower vibration or lower frequency. Rather, realize the power that's inside of you. And the reason that we're here is because we can deal with this. The reason that we're here and tapping into our raw consciousness is because this is what we came to do. We are the ones that were strong enough to deal with this virus. So that's why we're here. We have to remember that. We have to navigate through this matrix. We don't let the matrix or the virus navigate us. That's what's important. So kiss the one you love right now. You never know when the last time is going to be. Thank you very much for tuning in, and we'll see you very soon. And I promise next show will be much more positive. So love you. See you even further beyond the veil.